Welcome guys to Duel 52! This is Alka1983 and I'm facing Dark Magician girl11. In this duel I'm using my Hero Lightray deck, because guess what? It's a deck request, oh my god! Yeah! Okay, that was a little over the top, but yeah. The deck requests are back! And here we have a deck request made by Necruta, a fellow Dutch duelist friend of mine. He requested a while back that I used a Lightray deck, and here it is. My deck consists of 43 cards, and for this Lightray deck I decided to go with a hero build with Ehren and Jain as the Lightsworns in there as well. In my deck you will see that I have 3 skill drain, although right after the duel I was thinking, why the hell is skill drain in this deck? It can stop some of my opponent's strategies, but for me, it's mostly just in the way because it stops some of mine as well. Gearfried's effect, Daedalus' effect, Ehren's effect. They were all stopped because of skill drain. So I was like, why the heck is it still in there? This deck consists of 43 cards, so if I take out the 3 skill drain, it's at nice 40. Because I'll be honest and say I wasn't completely 100% satisfied with this deck yet. Before I started recording this, but I was like, I just really don't know how to improve it anymore. But after the last duel I had, so the duel before this and this one, I was like, skill drain needs to be taken out. So you'll see in a little bit when we do that. The deck profile for this deck, that I'll just be taking the skill drains out of there, and I'll just consider it a deck of 40 cards because that's a lot nicer usually. My opponent here is using a Gusto deck, which is his favorite deck as far as I know. Now to my deck, the Lightrays. For those who don't know, Lightray is a series of cards, a series of 5 monster cards that are only in the TCG exclusive because they're not in the OCG. And now the volume of my Camtasia is suddenly doing weird, so I'm sorry if that is just screwing up for you. I am very sorry. I'm trying to edit it right now, but that's kind of difficult to do during the recording itself. But yeah, Lightrays, TCG exclusives. Most Lightrays can't be normal or special summoned. Normal, summoned, or set. You can only special summon them when you have a certain amount of light monsters in your grave, or in Care Sorcerer's case, have a certain amount of lights banished. Lightray Gearfried can be normal summoned, I believe, and has an effect that can banish other lights so that you can then summon Care Sorcerer, for example. In this deck, I'm using Lightray Daedalus and Lightray Gearfried. Lightray Daedalus can be special summoned from your hand if you have 4 or more light monsters in your graveyard. Doesn't matter if they're the same light monster, as long as there are 4 light monsters in the graveyard. It has an effect, and that can be activated. What the hell is the volume doing? Anyway, that effect can be activated if you have if there is a field spell card on the field. With Daedalus' effect, you target that field spell and 2 other cards on the field, and you destroy all 3 of them when it's resolving, which I believe I will be using 2 times in this duel. Gearfried is more difficult to summon because it doesn't require 4 lights in the grave, it requires 5 lights in the grave. And they need to be, all 5 of those lights need to be different ones. For Daedalus, let's say you would have Ehren, a Lightsworn Monk, Jain, Lightsworn Paladin, and then 2 elemental heroes Sparkman. That's 4 lights, so Daedalus can be summoned. But for Gearfried, Ehren, Jain, and the Sparkmans would only count as 3 monsters because 2 Sparkmans are one and the same card, really. Gearfried really requires you to have 5 different ones. And in my main deck, not counting Gearfried and Daedalus, I have 5 different lights. Ehren, Jain, Alius, Sparkman, and Captain Gold. And then in my extra deck I have quite a few other lights that I can use. What the hell is the volume doing? So, again, sorry if the volume is acting weird. The volume slider thingy on Camtasia is just going up and down, acting up, really. So I'm sorry if the narration is kind of weird because of that. But yeah, Gearfried needs 5 different lights in the grave. But once per turn, if the opponent activates a spell or trap card, you are able to banish one warrior from your grave, and I have quite a few warriors. Jain is a warrior, Ehren's a warrior, my elemental heroes are warriors, so that'll work. And I can banish one of those from the graveyard, and then I can just negate their spell or trap, which is good. I like that. Now here, with Thunwald's effect, my opponent summons Ree's Whirlwind of Gusto, which can be really annoying. Because once per turn, you can return one card from your hand to the bottom of your deck to trigger one monster your opponent controls and one Gusto you control yourself, and then switch control of the targets. So if the opponent has a really strong monster and you yourself have a weak monster, then you can just switch control of those targets. Especially if you have something like Gusto Eagle or Gusto Guldo or whatever in attack mode, you switch control of that and the opponent's strong monster. You have 2 strong monsters yourself, Reese, and that monster you took from your opponent. You destroy Guldo or Eagle in battle, and you get their effect because it activates in your own graveyard. But my opponent knew that he wouldn't be able to do much with just Reese's effect, so decides to play Dark Hole, get rid of all 5 of my monsters, which is kind of annoying, but yeah, it happens, I guess. And what this does make that I have enough lights in my graveyard to be able to special summon Lightray Gearfried would I draw another one, because I have 3 of those in my deck. And yeah, I send one to the graveyard when I first used Lavalval Chain, so that I would have enough for Gearfried or Daedalus later. And that worked out. I was able to summon Daedalus pretty quickly and use its effect. Now here I have another Skyscraper. There's multiple reasons why I have Captain Gold and Skyscraper. Skyscraper, first of all, helps just with when elemental heroes are attacking. Second, you can discard Captain Gold to the graveyard to get Skyscraper from your deck. So one, you get another light in your graveyard, which can be very helpful for Gearfried and Daedalus. Also, you thin your deck out, making you more likely to draw the card you really want. So nearing the end of the duel, that's usually Gearfried or Daedalus, because you'll probably have a lot of lights in the graveyard by then. You know, I have Alius, and here he's planning to use Reese's effect and give me Eagle, but I'm like, no. Gemini Spark, tribute a Gemini monster, which is Alius, destroying his Reese and then drawing 1 card. So Reese was able to come out twice, wasn't able to do a thing. Bye-bye, Reese. And here he summons Calm and synchros into Magical Android. And do you guys remember that one video? It wasn't an official duel video, I didn't give it a duel video name, but he was also using his Gusto deck, only he was on a different account called Junk Berserker 112. You might know that person. I face him quite often. But he also used this Gusto deck. And thanks to the help of Magical Android, he was able to get to 34,900 life points. What the hell? Volume slider. Sometimes I find you really annoying. Okay. Captain Gold to the grave, just to thin out my deck. Hopefully get Daedalus or Gearfried next turn, because I really want it. Gearfried, to be very honest, because it's a little stronger than Daedalus and it can negate spells and traps. Although Daedalus can just destroy everything he has because I have a field spell. Sorry, I haven't slept much. Well, I haven't slept much the nights from Wednesday to Thursday and Thursday to Friday. I slept a lot last night, like 13 hours straight, because I was so tired. Right, here I draw, and I get Daedalus. And I definitely have at least 4 lights in the graveyard, so I special summon it. Use its effect to destroy Skyscraper and both of his cards. But due to the field spell being destroyed, having left the field, Captain Gold is now also destroyed by its effect, which doesn't really matter. So I just normal summon Jain, Lightsworn, Paladin because I can, and attack directly with Lightray Daedalus and finish the match. So Dark Magician Girl 11, thank you very much for the duel. It's time to go into the deck recipe. I got you guys. Anyway, welcome guys. This is the deck profile for Necruta's deck request, the Lightray deck. Let's jump right into it. I have 3 Elemental Hero Sparkmans. Don't do that much themselves. They're an Elemental Hero, they're a Light Monster, and they're normal, which is helpful for the 1 Rescue Rabbit that I decided to run. This deck originally had 3 Rescue Rabbits, it also had 3 Cabazels, but I'll explain more about those later. I have 1 Ehren Lightsworn Monk because it has a helpful ability. It is a warrior and a light attribute. Because when it attacks, before damage calculation, but that is after the monster's flipped face up, so the opponent has to reveal what monster it is, that monster is shuffled into the deck. And its effect mills the top 3 cards of your deck during the end phase of your turn, meaning you can get lights in the graveyard quicker for Daedalus and Gearfried. I have 3 Elemental Hero Captain Gold. Already explained that in the duel itself. It can discard itself to the graveyard to, 1, get a Skyscraper, which is helpful for your Elemental Heroes. Captain Gold, that way, is in the graveyard itself, an extra light monster for Daedalus and or Gearfried. And Skyscraper can then also be used for Daedalus' effect, would you want that, and the deck is thin so you can draw certain cards earlier. I have 3 times Elemental Hero Alius as a strong 1900 attack, level 4 monster. Another light attribute, which is, it's clear why there's light attributes, because that's what light rays want. It's an Elemental Hero, very useful, and it also is useful in combination with Gemini Spark. I run 1 Elemental Hero Stratos because it's a strong Elemental Hero for level 4, and it can search Elemental Heroes from your deck when it's normal or special summoned. I run 3 Jain Lightsworn Paladins because I really like them. They're warrior, they're light, level 4, 1800 attack, and when they attack another monster, their effect takes them to 2100 attack. And just like Ehren, during the end phase you mill cards from your deck, only Jain mills 2 instead of Ehren's 3. I have 3 Lightray Daedalus. As I said in the duel, you can only special summon from your hand, can't be normal summoned or set. You need to have 4 or more light monsters in your graveyard to be able to special summon it. And once per turn, you can target 1 field spell card and 2 other cards on the field and destroy them. It doesn't say that the field spell cards has to be yours. It can be your opponent's field spell as well. But usually if you're running Daedalus, you run field spells as well. I have 3 Lightray Gearfrieds. These are quite a bit more difficult to summon than Daedalus, because Daedalus just cares about having 4 light monsters in the graveyard. Gearfried needs you to have 5 instead of 4, and they have to be 5 different ones. So for Daedalus you could have Captain Gold, Alius, Ehren, but Gearfried would only count that as 3 because the Captain Golds are, well, one and the same card really. So you would need Alius, Captain Gold, Ehren, Sparkman, and Jain, for example. So if you don't count the light rays, my main deck has 5 different lights: Jain, Sparkman, Ehren, Captain Gold, Alius. But Daedalus and Gearfried are also able to enter the grave because of certain things, by milling by Ehren, Jain, Charge of the Light Brigade. And this one is also really helpful. I'll talk about him later. I have 1 copy of Rescue Rabbit because it can banish itself, summon 2 Sparkmans, which can then both attack, and then Exceed summon into something. And usually I do something that can with an ignition effect that. Like Lavalval Chain, even though Lavalval Chain isn't a light itself, it can detach an Exceed material, meaning another light enters the graveyard, and it can then send a card from the deck to the grave, meaning another light, and then usually I select a light that isn't in the graveyard already. Because that's then helpful, because then Gearfried can be summoned easier. Let's see, I run 1 Charge of the Light Brigade because it mills 3 cards, and you can get either Ehren or Jain to your hand. Darkhold to just decimate the field, destroy all monsters. 2 times E Emergency Call to add a hero to my hand, quite helpful. 3 Gemini Spark. If you have a Gemini monster field, you can tribute it, and target 1 card on the field. That 1 target is destroyed, and then you draw 1 card. This was used in the duel against Ree's Whirlwind of Gusto. I have 3 Gemini Sparks and 3 Gemini monsters, Neos Alius. I'm thinking of maybe switching the Gemini Spark for something else. I just don't know yet what. So if any of you has an idea of what I could maybe switch out one of the Gemini Sparks by, please tell me. And if I have, just like with all the other decks that I do deck profiles of, if I decide to switch anything in the deck profile, I'll make an annotation of that so that you'll know for later. One Heavy Storm it's the Dark Hole of spells and traps, destroys all spells and traps in the field, very helpful. 3 Miracle Fusion. It does banish cards from your graveyard usually, but you have quite a few heroes, and you have, except for Rescue Rabbit, all lights. Meaning, you can get Elemental Hero the Shining, and because you banish at least one Elemental Hero, and maybe second, it can get to 2900 or even 3200 attack. And when it leaves the field, you can add 2 of your banished Elemental Heroes back to your hand, which I did in the duel with the 2 Captain Golds. I have Monster Reborn to bring back a monster from either of the graveyards. Really like that. Reinforcement of the army to add a warrior to my hand. So that's Sparkman, Captain Gold, Neos Alius, but also Stratos and Jain. All of my level 4 or lowers, except for Rescue Rabbit. 3 Skyscrapers to go in combo with Captain Gold to help the Elemental Heroes and to serve for sort of a tribute-ish fodder for Lightray Daedalus, even though it's not really tributed, Skyscraper is destroyed, but still. And then I have 3 Hero Blasts. When Hero Blast is activated, you target 1 Elemental Hero normal monster in your graveyard, and you add it to your hand. So that would be Sparkman, because it's the only normal monster Elemental Hero that I have. And then you can destroy 1 face-up monster the opponent controls with attack less than or equal to that target's attack. So not only are you able to add Sparkman back to your hand, you can also destroy an opponent's monster with 1600 attack or less. But Alius, because it's a Gemini monster, is treated as a normal monster while it is face-up on the field or in the graveyard. So, since Hero Blast targets a card in the graveyard, Alius is also seen as a normal monster, so you can also add Alius to your hand, meaning you can then destroy a monster with 1900 instead of 1600 or less attack, which I find very helpful. And then you have Alius in your or Sparkman in your hand again, so you can use it again later. And then here are the skill drains. I decided to put them in to be able to disrupt opponent's strategies, but sometimes the opponent doesn't really use strategies that depend on effects. And really, for my deck, they don't stop Rescue Rabbit, but they stop Stratos, they stop Jain, they stop Ehren, and they stop Daedalus and Gearfried's effects. I'm like, it's too much in the way for me, so buy Skill Drain. That also makes 40 cards instead of 43. Just works better. So Skill Drains, buy, consider it as if they were never in the deck. Extra deck. 3 Elemental Hero the Shinings to go with 3 Miracle Fusions, and it's another light for the graveyard would it enter the graveyard, so that you can summon Lightray Daedalus and Lightray Gearfried earlier. Lavalval Chain. This wasn't originally in my extra deck, but when I thought of it, I was like, this is actually a really useful card. Because as I said earlier when I explained about Sparkman and Rescue Rabbit, you can detach a card, meaning another light enters the grave, and then send a card from your deck to your graveyard, meaning another light enters the grave. 2 lights in one turn. And then the only thing you've been doing is 1 Xyz summon. Maybe you can use other effects like Captain Gold to get another light in the grave. But what Lavalval Chain can also do is, instead of sending a monster, any card from the deck to the grave, but I'll go with monsters for this deck, you can choose 1 monster card from your deck and place it on top of your deck. So let's say I already have 5 different lights in my graveyard. I can play Lightray Gearfried on top of my deck, so I can summon it next turn. It could be very helpful. I run 1 Maestroke, the Symphony Djinn. Also 2 level 4 monsters, not that high of attack, but when it would be destroyed, I can detach an Xyz material to negate its destruction, and that's a continuous effect and not a trigger. So things like Shadow Imprisoning Mirror cannot negate it, neither can Divine Wrath. And also, if the opponent has a face-up attack position monster, you can detach, during your own turn, you can detach an Xyz material from Maestroke to change that monster into face-down defense position. So it's sort of a Book of Moon-ish effect. Only Book of Moon also works on defense position cards, and this one only on face-up attack. I have 1 Steelstorm Roach because I had space left in my extra deck, and it can negate special summons. Although it's not that useful anymore, but it can still be useful. I don't use it often. Heroic Champion Excalibur. As I said, I have quite a few warriors in here, and Excalibur is a light. And once per turn, you can detach both of its Xyz materials, so 2 of them, and until the opponent's end phase, this card's attack becomes double its original attack. And seeing as its original attack is 2000, until the end of the opponent's turn, not just your turn, but the opponent's turn, it has 4000 attack, which can be very deadly. I have Blade Armor Ninja, which also requires 2 level 4 warriors, and once per turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material instead of 2 for Excalibur, and 1 face of ninja monster you control, and Blade Armor Ninja is the only ninja I have, so it'll be using itself. And that monster can attack twice during each battle phase. It may not get the huge attack boost from like Excalibur, but it can attack twice. And that means 4,400 attack instead of 4,000 in the end. And if the opponent has a defense position monster, then this effect will help destroy the monster, but you won't be able to damage the opponent. Blade Armor Ninja can then destroy the defense position monster and then direct attack. So they can both be very helpful. That's why I run 1 of each. Photon Papilloperative. I really like this card because if the opponent has a defense position monster, you can change it to face-up attack position, and it loses 600 attack, meaning pretty much always you can then destroy it and inflict damage to battle damage to them, and it's another light monster. Constellar Omega, because it's another light, requires 2 level 4 light monsters, which works out for me because everything except Rescue Rabbit in my deck is light, in my main deck anyway. And you can attach 1 Xyz material from this card, getting another light in the grave for the light rays, and this turn all face-up Constellar monsters you currently control are unaffected by spells and traps. This is the only Constellar in the deck, so the effect only really works on itself, but that way it does save itself from spells and traps during the turn. And you can have another light in the grave, and when Omega enters the grave you have another light. Utopia, should be clear, can negate 2 attacks in total with its effect, and it's another light for the graveyard, for later for the light rays. Gemini Pearl for a strong rank 4 Xyz, which requires only 2 monsters, should be clear. Shockmaster, because 1, it is a light, and 2nd, it can negate certain things from that the opponent maybe wants to bring out, spell traps or sorry, still tired. Or spell traps or monster effects that the opponent might want to use. I have Evil Storm Ouroboros because I quite like it. It can target 1 card your opponent controls and return that target to the hand. It can also send 1 random card from the opponent's hand to the grave, and as its 3rd effect, it can target 1 card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. It requires 3 level 4 monsters, but it has 2750 attack, which is quite a lot, and each of its effects can be activated once, and you can activate the effect once per turn. And then I have 1 number 11 Big Eye, which requires 2 level 7s, which is Daedalus. Gearfried is 8, but Daedalus is level 7. And Big Eye, I don't usually use Big Eye. Daedalus is more useful, but if the opponent has a really strong monster that I just can't get rid of, I could go into Big Eye, detach 1 Xyz material, target 1 card of the monster the opponent controls, and take control of it. And Big Eye doesn't have to give the monster back, you keep the monster. I find that very helpful. Now for my extra deck, I guess I'll talk about a bit the first version of the deck, because the first version of this deck had two more Rescue Rabbits and 3 Cabazols, because then you could choose between Sparkman and the Cabazols. The Cabazols could go into Evolsar, Dolka, and Lagia, which are both very useful Xyz monsters, you should all know that. And the Cabazols could also be used with Miracle Fusion and an Elemental Hero to form Elemental Hero Absolute Zero, which is also another very useful monster. And I also have 1 Ghost Ship. It can't be normal summoner set, but you can special summon from your hand by banishing a light from the grave. Not that useful. It's only 1900 attack, and this works more with Lightray Sorcerer, because that can be summoned with a certain amount of lights banished. But I decided to have 1 in the side deck because I might try it out sometime. One of my friends, I can't remember who, but suggests that I use Herald of Creation. Once per turn you can discard 1 card, then target 1 level 7 or higher monster in your grave and add it to your hand. So that way you can discard 1 card, can be a light if you wish, and then add a level 7 or above monster and add it to your hand. So if you have a Daedalus or Gearfried in your graveyard, you can add it back to your hand and then summon it with its effect. And then finally, I have a Chaos number 39 Utopia Ray to go with Utopia, but at the moment I'm happy with the extra deck that I have. And that is it for deck request number 6, I believe it is. Last one was Gladiator Beast, that was duel 36, but yeah. Thanks guys for watching this duel, thanks guys for watching this deck profile. Necruta, hereby your deck request has been completed. If you wish, you can make a new one. I already have 7 more going on, so I'll be working on most of those. But yeah, if you wish, you can make a new deck request now, Necruta. Alright guys, from Alka183 and Shape Snatch, we will see you guys later.